I paid for a private villa, but when we got there, my parents invited all their friends. Without. My name is Olivia. I am 32 years old and worked hard to plan what I thought would be the perfect family vacation. I saved for months to rent an exclusive beachfront villa in the Hamptons to celebrate my parents' 35th anniversary. I was so excited for quality time with just my parents and younger sister. Little did I know that everything would go terribly wrong the moment we arrived. Before I get into this story, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and stick around to hear how I finally learned to set boundaries with my family. Growing up, I always had a close relationship with my parents. They were supportive, loving, and present throughout my childhood. However, they could also be quite overbearing at times, particularly when it came to social gatherings and family events. They were the type who believed that more people always meant more fun regardless of the occasion or setting. Despite their sometimes overwhelming tendencies, I loved them deeply and wanted to do something special for their 35th anniversary. They had been through so much together, including my father's battle with cancer 5 years ago and rebuilding their small business after a devastating fire. They deserved to be celebrated in a grand way. After graduating from college with a marketing degree, I struggled for several years as an underpaid intern at various advertising agencies in New York City. There were nights I would eat ramen for dinner while applying for better positions, wondering if I had chosen the wrong career path. But my persistence paid off when I landed a junior position at a prestigious firm, and over the next 7 years, I worked my way up to becoming a senior marketing executive with a salary that finally reflected my worth. Even with my improved financial situation, saving $12,000 for a week-long villa rental was no small feat. I cut back on eating out, postponed buying a new car, even though my current one was constantly in the shop, and took on additional freelance projects on weekends. Every extra dollar went into my perfect anniversary vacation fund. The search for the ideal villa took months. I wanted something truly special that would take my parents' breath away. After countless hours scrolling through rental websites and speaking with local real estate agents, I finally found a stunning beachfront property in the Hamptons, with panoramic ocean views, a private infinity pool, 5 luxuriously appointed bedrooms, a gourmet kitchen, and a spacious deck, perfect for watching sunsets. The photos showed elegant furnishings, high ceilings, and windows that filled every room with natural light. When I secured the booking, I immediately called my parents to share the good news. "Mom, Dad, I have found the perfect place for us to celebrate your anniversary," I explained, emphasizing that this would be a small, intimate family celebration with just the 4 of us, them, myself, and my younger sister Sophia. "Oh, honey, that sounds wonderful," my mother had responded. "Just us relaxing together like we never get to do anymore." My father had added, "We appreciate this more than you know, Olivia. Quality family time is the best gift you could give us." With their enthusiastic approval, I threw myself into planning every detail of the trip. I spent evenings researching local restaurants for special dinner reservations, booking a private chef for their anniversary night, and arranging a professional photographer to capture family portraits on the beach. For gifts, I found a vintage bottle of wine from the year they were married and commissioned a local artist to create a painting of their first home together. I wanted everything to be meaningful and personal. My sister Sophia, who was 26 and working as a nurse in Boston, was equally excited about the trip. During our weekly phone calls, she helped brainstorm activities that our parents would enjoy: a sailing excursion, wine tasting at a local vineyard, and hiking through a nearby nature preserve. She also reminded me of how our childhood vacations had always been overrun with family friends. "Remember that trip to Lake George when we were kids?" she asked during one of our planning sessions. "Mom and Dad invited 3 other families to stay in our rental without telling us beforehand. We ended up sleeping on air mattresses in the living room." I laughed at the memory, but was also determined that history would not repeat itself. "This time will be different," I assured her. "I have been very clear that this is just for us. Besides, the villa has a strict maximum occupancy policy that I have already signed." As the weeks passed, my anticipation grew. I created a detailed itinerary that balanced structured activities with plenty of free time for relaxation. I envisioned mornings spent drinking coffee on the deck, afternoons lounging by the pool, and evenings sharing heartfelt conversations over good food and wine. After years of quick weekend visits and holidays split between various obligations, this would be our chance to reconnect as a family in a meaningful way. The night before we were set to leave, I packed my suitcase with careful consideration, including a special outfit for each planned event. As I folded a sundress for our beach day, I thought about how this vacation represented more than just a celebration of my parents' marriage. It was also a celebration of my own success, my ability to provide something special for the people I loved most in the world. I fell asleep that night with a sense of contentment and excitement for the week ahead, completely unaware of how quickly my carefully laid plans would unravel. The day of our departure arrived with perfect weather, clear blue skies, and a gentle breeze that seemed to validate all my planning. Sophia and I had arranged to drive together while our parents would follow in their own car a few hours later. They had a morning appointment they could not reschedule, but assured us they would arrive in time for the welcome dinner I had planned. Sophia arrived at my apartment early, practically bouncing with excitement as she helped load my luggage into the trunk of my car. At 26, she still had a youthful enthusiasm that was contagious. Her dark hair pulled into a messy bun and her face makeup-free for the 3-hour drive ahead of us. "I cannot wait to see this fancy villa you have been talking about for months," she said, sliding into the passenger seat and immediately connecting her phone to the car's sound system. "I have created the perfect road trip playlist for us." As we pulled away from my apartment building, the first notes of an upbeat song filled the car, and Sophia turned to me with a grin. "5 whole days of luxury living here we come." The drive to the Hamptons was filled with easy conversation as we caught up on each other's lives. Being a nurse, Sophia always had interesting stories about her patients, though she was careful to maintain their privacy. I shared updates about my latest marketing campaign and the office politics that seemed to consume so much mental energy. "Do you think Mom and Dad will actually relax this week?" Sophia asked as we drove along the scenic coastal route. "I cannot remember the last time I saw them without a phone in hand or a list of tasks to complete." "They better," I replied. "I have made it clear that this is a technology-minimal vacation." Dad agreed to check his business email only once per day. As we got closer to our destination, the scenery became increasingly picturesque. Grand homes peeked out from behind manicured hedges and glimpses of the ocean appeared between properties. I felt a surge of pride knowing that for 1 week we would be part of this exclusive world. Following the GPS directions, we turned down a private drive lined with tall trees that opened up to reveal our home for the next week. The online photos, impressive as they were, had not done the property justice. The villa was a modern architectural masterpiece of glass and stone with multiple levels that cascaded toward the beach. Floor-to-ceiling windows reflected the afternoon sunlight, and a sprawling deck wrapped around the entire structure. "Holy cow," Sophia whispered beside me. "You really went all out." After parking in the spacious driveway, we approached the front door with our luggage. I entered the code I had received from the property manager, and the door unlocked with a satisfying click. Stepping inside, we were greeted by an expansive, open-concept living area with soaring ceilings and unobstructed views of the ocean beyond. "This is unbelievable," Sophia said, spinning slowly to take in every detail. "Look at that kitchen, and that view." We explored each room like excited children, marveling at the luxurious furnishings, the state-of-the-art appliances in the kitchen, and the sumptuous bedrooms, each with its own ensuite bathroom. The master suite, which I had reserved for our parents, featured a private balcony, a fireplace, and a bathroom with a deep soaking tub positioned to enjoy ocean views. After selecting our own rooms, Sophia and I unpacked and then set about preparing for our parents' arrival. I arranged their anniversary gifts on the bed in the master suite, while Sophia decorated the dining area with photos of our parents throughout their 35 years together, which we had secretly collected from family albums. In the kitchen, I began preparing the welcome dinner I had planned: my father's favorite lasagna made from my grandmother's recipe, a fresh salad with ingredients from a local farmer's market we had stopped at on the way, and a bottle of champagne chilling in the refrigerator. The afternoon passed pleasantly as we worked together, music playing softly in the background, and the sound of waves providing a gentle soundtrack through the open windows. Everything was perfect, exactly as I had envisioned. But as the scheduled arrival time for our parents came and went, I began checking my phone with increasing frequency. "They are probably just stuck in traffic," Sophia reassured me after they were an hour late. "You know Dad never factors in enough travel time." Another hour passed and I was about to call when I received a text from my mother. "Running late, got delayed leaving the house, should be there in about an hour." While I was slightly annoyed at the delay, I adjusted the dinner preparation accordingly and tried not to let it dampen my mood. The lasagna could stay warm in the oven, and it would give Sophia and I more time to enjoy the property before sharing it. Finally, 3 hours later than expected, we heard a car in the driveway. Through the front windows, I watched my parents emerge from their sedan looking tired but happy. What struck me as odd was the amount of luggage they were unloading, far more than would be necessary for a 5-day stay. "They always overpack," Sophia commented, noting my expression. "Remember when they brought 3 suitcases for that weekend trip to Grandma's?" I nodded, but something felt off. My mother was on her phone as she approached the house, speaking in a hushed tone that immediately sent up a red flag in my mind. Nevertheless, I pushed the concern aside and opened the front door with a wide smile. "Welcome to paradise," I announced, gesturing grandly at the space behind me. My parents' reactions did not disappoint. My mother gasped audibly, her hand flying to her chest, while my father let out a low whistle of appreciation. "Olivia, this is absolutely gorgeous," my mother said, stepping inside and immediately moving toward the ocean view. "You did not tell us it would be this spectacular." My father clapped me on the shoulder as he passed. "You have outdone yourself, kiddo." As we helped them bring in their luggage, my mother made a comment that initially seemed innocent. "I hope we have enough room for everyone to be comfortable," she said, glancing around the spacious living area. "More than enough," I replied cheerfully. "5 bedrooms for 4 people. We are practically rattling around in here." My mother and father exchanged a quick glance that sent another wave of unease through me, but my father quickly changed the subject, asking about the dinner that was filling the house with delicious aromas. That first evening proceeded largely as planned. We enjoyed the lasagna and champagne, then presented my parents with the vintage wine and a small cake I had ordered from a local bakery. They seemed genuinely touched by the effort, and we spent hours at the dining table reminiscing about family memories and discussing plans for the week ahead. It was only as we were preparing for bed that my mother made another comment that should have warned me. As she was checking her phone, she casually mentioned, "Oh, Janet and Robert might stop by tomorrow to say hello. They are vacationing nearby and were so excited when they heard we would be in the area." "That is nice," I said carefully. "For lunch or just coffee?" "Oh, we will see," my mother replied vaguely, not meeting my eyes. You know how these things go when good friends get together. I went to bed that night with a faint sense of disquiet, but convinced myself I was overreacting. Surely my parents understood and respected that this was meant to be a private family vacation. I had been explicit about that from the beginning. How wrong I was. The next morning, I woke to the sound of voices far more than the 3 other family members staying in the villa. Confused and still groggy from sleep, I checked the time, 8:30 a.m. Throwing on a robe over my pajamas, I made my way downstairs, following the sound of laughter and conversation coming from the kitchen and deck area. What I saw stopped me in my tracks. My parents were in the kitchen preparing coffee and breakfast, but they were not alone. 6 additional people, all around my parents' age, were scattered throughout the open living space. Some were seated at the dining table with coffee cups, others were exploring the living room, and 2 were already on the deck admiring the view. They all had luggage with them. Not small overnight bags, but full-sized suitcases that had been deposited in the entryway. My mother spotted me frozen on the staircase and waved cheerfully. "Olivia, you are up? Come down and say hello. You remember the Johnsons and the Williamses, right? And this is Tom and Barbara Sanders. They moved to our neighborhood a few years ago after you had already moved to the city." I managed to make my way down the stairs, my mind racing to process what was happening. These were indeed my parents' longtime friends, couples I had met at various gatherings over the years, but certainly not people I had invited to our family vacation. "Good morning," I said automatically, trying to keep my voice steady. "This is unexpected. Your parents have been raving about this gorgeous place," said Linda Johnson, a petite woman with a silver bob who had known my mother since college. When they invited us to join the anniversary celebration, we just could not pass it up. Invited you? I repeated, looking directly at my mother, who avoided my gaze by suddenly becoming very interested in the coffee maker. Oh yes, about 2 weeks ago, Linda continued, oblivious to the tension. We have all been looking forward to it. Such a wonderful idea to have a group getaway to celebrate 35 years. My father appeared from the pantry carrying a loaf of bread. Morning, Olivia. Did you sleep well? The Johnsons brought some amazing pastries from that famous bakery in town. You should try one before they are all gone. I stood there, unable to form a coherent response as more details became clear to me. These were not just visitors stopping by. They had been specifically invited by my parents to stay at the villa, without asking me, without even mentioning it until they had already arrived with luggage. I felt Sophia's presence beside me before I saw her, her hand giving my arm a supportive squeeze. She looked as shocked as I felt. Mom? I finally managed, keeping my voice low. Could I speak with you privately for a minute? My mother nodded with a breezy smile that did nothing to acknowledge the inappropriate situation she had created. Of course, honey. Let me just finish setting out these cups. I waited every minute, feeling like an hour, as my mother deliberately took her time arranging coffee cups on a tray. Finally, she followed me to the far corner of the kitchen, partially hidden from the guests by a large refrigerator. What is going on? I whispered intensely. Why are all these people here with luggage? My mother had the audacity to look surprised by my question. They are here for this anniversary celebration, of course. I told you Janet and Robert might stop by. You said they might stop by, not move in for the week, and you certainly never mentioned 4 other people, I said, struggling to keep my voice down. Mom, I rented this place for our family, just us 4. I was very clear about that. My mother waved her hand dismissively. Oh, Olivia, do not be so rigid. There is plenty of room here, and these are our dearest friends, people who have been part of our lives for decades. It would have been strange not to include them in such an important celebration. But I am paying for this place, I said, feeling a knot form in my stomach. It cost me $12,000 for the week. That was for 4 people, not 10. Well, it certainly seems like a large enough house to accommodate everyone, my mother replied. And it is our anniversary after all. Should not we get some say in how we celebrate? Before I could respond, my father joined our huddle, placing a hand on each of our shoulders. Everything okay over here? He asked, though his tone suggested he knew perfectly well it was not. Dad, did you invite all these people to stay here without asking me first? I asked directly. He at least had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable. We mentioned to a few close friends that we would be staying at a nice place in the Hamptons, and they expressed interest in joining us. It just evolved naturally from there. Evolved naturally? Dad, nothing about this is natural. You knew I rented this place specifically for us 4. You knew this was meant to be a private family celebration. My father's expression hardened slightly. Olivia, we never get to see our friends all together like this anymore. Everyone is scattered across different states, busy with their own lives. What is the big deal about sharing this beautiful house? There seem to be enough bedrooms. The big deal is that you did not ask me, I said, feeling my voice rise despite my efforts to stay calm. You did not even tell me they were coming. You let me plan and prepare for a family of 4 and then ambushed me with 6 extra people. My mother sighed dramatically. I knew you would overreact like this. This is why we did not say anything sooner. That statement hit me like a physical blow. They had deliberately concealed their plans because they knew I would object. It had been a calculated decision to present me with a fait accompli, assuming I would simply go along with it rather than make a scene. As this realization sank in, I noticed my mother had pulled out her phone and was typing a message. Who are you texting? I asked. Oh, just letting the Patels know that we have arrived safely and giving them the door code. They should be here around lunchtime. The Patels, I echoed, feeling increasingly like I had stepped into some alternate reality. How many more people did you invite? My mother looked up from her phone. Just Anita and Vikram and the Clarks. So 4 more, I think. Unless the Murphys can make it after all, but last I heard they were still trying to rearrange their schedule. I stood there speechless as the full magnitude of the situation became clear. My parents had invited not just the 6 friends already present, but potentially 8 more people to the villa. Without asking, without contributing financially, without any apparent consideration for the fact that I had paid for and planned this vacation with very specific intentions. As if on cue, Robert Johnson approached us with an empty coffee cup. "Diane, this place is absolutely spectacular. How many bedrooms did you say there were?" My mother smiled brightly. 5 beautiful bedrooms, though some of us will need to double up, I think. "Olivia, you would not mind sharing with Sophia, would you? That way we can fit everyone comfortably." I felt a surge of indignation rise within me. Not only had they invited a small army of friends without my permission, but now they were also rearranging the sleeping arrangements, displacing me from the room I had already unpacked in. "Actually, I would mind," I said, surprising myself with my directness. "I have already settled into my room." My mother's smile faltered slightly. "Well, we will figure something out. Maybe the Williamses would not mind using the pull-out sofa in the den." Robert looked uncomfortable, sensing the tension. "We do not want to impose," he began, but my mother cut him off. "Nonsense. You are not imposing at all. Olivia is just being a bit particular this morning. More coffee." As she led Robert away, my father gave me a look that clearly said, "Drop it," before following them. Left alone in the kitchen corner, I tried to process what was happening. This was my vacation, one I had saved for, planned meticulously, and looked forward to for months. And in the span of less than an hour, it had been completely hijacked. I watched as the uninvited guests made themselves at home, exploring the villa as if they owned it, opening cabinets and closets, testing the furniture, commenting on the decor. One couple had already claimed pool chairs on the deck, their belongings spread out to mark their territory. I caught sight of Sophia standing awkwardly near the staircase, looking lost and out of place in her own vacation home. Our eyes met, and she gave me a small, helpless shrug. That was when I knew I could not just let this go. This was not merely an inconvenience or a minor misunderstanding. This was a fundamental violation of boundaries, a complete disregard for my feelings, my finances, and my intentions. As I stood there watching my carefully planned family getaway transform into my parents' social event, I made a decision. I would not create a scene or engage in a public confrontation that would only lead to more tension. But I would not simply accept this situation either. There had to be a middle ground, a way to address this breach of trust without ruining the entire week. I just needed some time to figure out what that might be. In the hours that followed, I retreated to my bedroom under the pretense of needing to handle an urgent work matter. In reality, I needed space to process my feelings and decide how to respond to my parents' shocking behavior. Sitting on the edge of my bed, I felt a complex mix of emotions: anger at the boundary violation, hurt that my parents would dismiss my explicit wishes, and disbelief that they could be so inconsiderate of the financial investment I had made. But beneath these immediate reactions was a deeper pattern I had experienced throughout my life. This was far from the first time my parents had overridden my preferences or ignored my boundaries. Growing up, they had regularly volunteered my time without asking, signed me up for activities I had expressed no interest in, and made decisions about my life with minimal consultation. As a child and teenager, I had little recourse but to accept these impositions. As an adult, I had maintained peace by choosing my battles carefully, often giving in to avoid conflict. A memory surfaced from my college graduation. I had specifically requested a small celebration dinner with just immediate family, knowing I would be emotionally and physically exhausted after the ceremony. Instead, I arrived at the restaurant to find 25 of my parents' friends waiting to surprise me, leading to a long, draining evening of small talk when all I had wanted was quiet time with my family. Then there was my 30th birthday, when my mother had reorganized my apartment while I was at work, throwing away items she deemed unnecessary without asking. When I expressed dismay, she had responded with genuine confusion. "But I was just trying to help. You should be grateful." This pattern extended to my sister as well. Last year, my parents had pressured Sophia into attending a family friend's wedding the night before a major nursing exam, despite her pleas that she needed to study. She had ultimately acquiesced, failed the exam, and had to retake it 3 months later. As these memories cascaded through my mind, I realized this vacation incident was merely the latest in a lifelong series of boundary violations. The difference was the scale both emotionally and financially. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. Sophia entered, closing the door quietly behind her. "This is insane," she whispered, sitting beside me on the bed. "Two more couples just arrived. Mom gave them all the door code. They are treating this place like a hotel, and guess who they think is the concierge? Me. Mrs. Williams just asked me to bring more towels to her room." I groaned, falling back onto the bed and covering my face with a pillow. "I cannot believe this is happening. I spent $12,000 on this vacation. $12,000 I saved for months to afford." "I know," Sophia said, patting my leg sympathetically. "And now Mom is talking about dividing up the bedrooms. She asked if we would mind sharing so the Patels can have my room." I sat up abruptly. "Are you serious? This is beyond inappropriate. Have you tried talking to them?" Sophia nodded. "I tried approaching Dad while Mom was showing everyone around the pool area. He just said we should be more flexible and that family means sharing. Then he asked if I could run to the store because they need more groceries for dinner now that there are a few extra mouths to feed." "A few extra?" I repeated incredulously. "There are 10 uninvited guests here already, with more apparently on the way." "That is not a few extra." I got up and began pacing the room, my mind racing. "I need to do something, Sophia. I cannot just let them take advantage of me like this." "What can you do, though?" Sophia asked. "You know how Mom and Dad get when they feel challenged. They will just make us feel guilty for being selfish and unsociable." She was right. Direct confrontation rarely worked with our parents. They were masters at deflecting criticism, usually by turning it back on us or minimizing our concerns. If I made a scene now, I would be labeled the villain who ruined their anniversary celebration. I needed a different approach, something that would make my point without creating an irreparable family rift. Sitting back down, I pulled out my phone and began calculating the actual cost per person for the villa rental. The original cost for 4 people was $3,000 per person. I muttered, typing numbers into my calculator app. With 14 people total, that drops to approximately $857 per person. Sophia watched me curiously. "What are you thinking?" "I am not sure yet," I replied. "But I know I need advice from someone who is not emotionally involved in this situation." I texted my friend Julia, who worked in hotel management and had experience with difficult guest situations. Her response was immediate and supportive. "That's completely inappropriate. You need to address this directly but strategically. Document everything first." Taking her advice, I began making notes of exactly who had arrived when they had arrived and any relevant comments they had made. I also took discreet photos of the overcrowded villa, capturing the luggage pile in the entryway and the invasion of the common spaces. While I was doing this, my phone pinged with a message from my father. "Could you come help with lunch preparations? We need to feed quite a crowd." The casual presumption that I would naturally take on the role of chef for their uninvited guests was the final straw. I decided I needed physical distance to think clearly about my next steps. "I am going out for a while," I told Sophia. "I need some air and perspective." "What should I tell Mom and Dad?" "Tell them I had a work emergency and needed to find better cell reception," I suggested. "I will be back in a few hours." I changed quickly, grabbed my purse, and slipped out through a side door, avoiding the crowded main living area. As I got into my car and pulled away from the villa, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The space to think without my parents' justifications or their friends' oblivious entitlement was exactly what I needed. Driving into the nearby town, I found a small cafe with outdoor seating and ordered an iced tea. The normalcy of the setting away from the chaos at the villa helped clear my head. As I sat there, I noticed an older woman at the next table looking at me with concern. "Forgive me for intruding," she said gently, "but you look like you are carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. Sometimes talking to a stranger can help." Normally, I would have politely declined such an overture, but there was something kind and wise in her eyes that made me open up. I gave her an abbreviated version of my situation, careful not to reveal identifying details. She listened thoughtfully, nodding occasionally. When I finished, she did not immediately offer advice, instead, asking a question that cut to the heart of the matter. What do you value more, being right or preserving the relationship? Both, I answered honestly. I value being respected and having my boundaries acknowledged, but I also value my relationship with my parents. I just do not think those things should be mutually exclusive. She smiled. They should not be. The trick is finding a response that addresses the violation without severing the connection. Sometimes the most effective boundary setting does not look like confrontation at all. What do you mean? I asked, intrigued. In my experience, the most successful boundary setting happens when the natural consequences of someone's actions are allowed to unfold. No drama, no argument, just reality. As she spoke, an idea began to form in my mind. There was a way to address this situation that would make my point clear without creating a dramatic scene that might permanently damage my relationship with my parents. Thanking the woman for her insight, I spent the next hour at the cafe developing my plan. I called the villa owner to explain the situation, confirming that while the property could technically accommodate 14 people, the rental agreement I had signed was for a maximum of 6. He was understanding, but noted that additional guests beyond 6 would incur a surcharge of $100 per person per night. Next, I created a detailed spreadsheet on my laptop, itemizing all vacation expenses, the villa rental, the welcome dinner I had prepared, the groceries I had purchased, the activities I had booked, and now the additional surcharge for extra guests. By the time I finished, I had a comprehensive breakdown of costs that, when divided by 14 people rather than the original 4, gave a precise per-person amount. I also added payment information, including my Venmo, PayPal, and bank account details. With my plan in place, I felt a sense of calm resolution as I drove back to the villa. When I arrived, the situation had escalated even further. 2 more couples had arrived in my absence, bringing the total guest count to 14, exactly as my mother had indicated. The villa, though spacious, now felt cramped and overrun. People were everywhere, lounging by the pool, gathered in the kitchen, exploring the beach access path. My welcome gifts had been moved from the master suite to make room for someone's luggage, and the family photos Sophia had arranged were now pushed to one side of the dining table to accommodate a large platter of cheese and crackers. I found Sophia in a corner of the living room, looking miserable. "They rearranged everything," she whispered when I approached. "And Mrs. Clark asked if I could do a load of laundry for her because she did not pack enough clothes." Rather than responding directly to the latest impositions, I simply asked, "Is everyone here now? No more arrivals expected?" Sophia nodded. "I think this is everyone. Mom said something about the Murphys not being able to make it after all." "Good," I said with a calm that surprised even me. "I need about 20 minutes on my laptop, and then I will join everyone." In my room, I finalized my spreadsheet, adding the names of all 14 guests, including myself, Sophia, and our parents. I converted it to a PDF and composed a carefully worded email. "Dear all, I am delighted that so many of you could join us to celebrate my parents' 35th anniversary. As the number of guests has expanded beyond the originally planned 4, I have recalculated the costs to ensure everything is fair and transparent. Attached is a breakdown of all expenses for the week, divided equally among all 14 attendees. Your individual share comes to $1,157.35, which includes villa rental, $857.14, additional guest surcharge, $100 per night, $500 total for the week. Welcome dinner and groceries already purchased, $98.21. Planned activities, $102. For your convenience, I have included several payment options below. Please settle your share by tomorrow evening. Looking forward to enjoying the rest of the week together, Olivia." I included all my payment details, and after a final review, hit send. I had included every email address I could gather from the guest list my mother had apparently created without my knowledge. As a final step, I turned off my phone's notifications and set it to Do Not Disturb mode. Whatever the immediate fallout might be, I wanted to approach it on my own terms. Taking a deep breath, I rejoined the gathering downstairs, where my mother was in the middle of proposing a toast to wonderful friends and family coming together. I accepted a glass of champagne, clinked glasses with those around me, and settled into a chair by the window, waiting for the emails to be read. I did not have to wait long. The aftermath of my email unfolded like a slow-motion scene in a movie. As I sat quietly observing from my window seat, Phones began to chime around the room, the distinctive sound of email notifications creating a subtle wave of interruptions to the ongoing conversations. At first, only a few guests checked their devices, but as more phones sounded, curiosity spread. I watched as expressions shifted from casual interest to confusion, and then in many cases, to visible discomfort, as they read my itemized breakdown of costs. My mother was in the middle of telling a story about their recent cruise when she noticed the change in atmosphere. Her voice faltered as she observed several guests exchanging glances and whispering to each other. When her own phone chimed, she excused herself to check it, my father following close behind. From across the room, I could see the moment they read the email. My mother's face drained of color, while my father's brows drew together in a deep frown. They huddled over the phone, whispering intensely, occasionally glancing in my direction. The living room had grown uncommonly quiet, with conversations trailing off into awkward silence. Several of the uninvited guests were now looking at me with expressions ranging from embarrassment to shock. It was clear that many of them had not realized I was the one financing the entire vacation. Barbara Sanders, one of the newer friends I had only met that morning, was the first to approach me. She moved tentatively across the room, clutching her phone in one hand. "Olivia," she said quietly, taking the seat beside me. "I had no idea you were paying for all of this yourself. Your mother told us this was a group rental that had already been arranged and we would settle up expenses at the end of the week." I kept my expression neutral. "I see." "I feel terrible," she continued. "Tom and I would never have agreed to come if we had known the circumstances. We thought this was a jointly planned gathering." Before I could respond, Richard Williams joined us, looking distinctly uncomfortable. "Olivia, my wife and I just read your email. We had absolutely no idea that you had rented this place specifically for a family vacation. Your parents presented it as their anniversary celebration that they were hosting." More guests began to gravitate toward our corner, each expressing similar sentiments of surprise and discomfort. It became increasingly clear that my parents had misrepresented the situation to everyone, implying that either they had rented the villa or that it was a group arrangement from the beginning. Linda Johnson, my mother's oldest friend, looked particularly mortified. "Diane told us they had found this wonderful place for an anniversary gathering with friends. She specifically said there was plenty of room and they wanted everyone to come." She paused, then added quietly, "I have already sent you the payment." "I am so sorry for the misunderstanding." Tom Sanders pulled out his wallet. "Do you prefer cash or Venmo? I want to take care of this right away." Within minutes, several guests had initiated payments, some apologizing profusely for the intrusion. A few began quietly discussing alternative accommodations, clearly uncomfortable with staying now that they understood the circumstances. From the kitchen, I could hear my parents engaged in a heated but hushed argument. My father's voice occasionally rose enough for phrases to be distinguishable. "How could you not tell me?" and "This is humiliating." Sophia, who had been watching the scene unfold from the staircase, caught my eye and gave me a subtle thumbs up. She looked equal parts impressed and anxious about the unfolding situation. As the evening progressed, an uncomfortable division occurred. Several couples announced they had found last-minute accommodations at nearby hotels and would be leaving in the morning. Others awkwardly committed to staying, but insisted on contributing fully to all expenses moving forward. My parents remained largely isolated, my mother particularly quiet and withdrawn. It was nearly 9 in the evening when my mother finally approached me. I was on the deck watching the moonlight on the water, deliberately giving everyone space to process the situation. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice lacking its usual confidence. I nodded, gesturing to the chair beside me. We sat in silence for a moment before she spoke again. "I owe you an apology," she said, the words clearly difficult for her. "I should have discussed inviting friends with you before doing it." I waited, sensing there was more. "It did not occur to me that you would mind," she continued. "You have always been so generous, so accommodating. I guess I took that for granted." "Did you tell your friends I was paying for everything?" I asked directly. My mother looked away, her discomfort evident. "Not exactly. I might have implied that we were all sharing the cost, or that this was something we had arranged together. Mom, I saved for months to afford this place. I was very clear from the beginning that this was meant to be a private family celebration. Why would you invite all these people without even mentioning it to me? She sighed deeply. I do not know, Olivia. I guess I just got excited about the idea of having all our friends together in such a beautiful place. And once I had mentioned it to Janet and Robert, it just snowballed. Everyone wanted to come and I did not know how to backtrack. But you deliberately concealed it from me, I pointed out. You knew I would object, so you decided to present me with a fait accompli instead. That was wrong of me, she admitted, surprising me with her directness. Your father and I discussed it and we convinced ourselves you would not really mind once everyone was here. We told ourselves you would enjoy the larger group. Even though I had explicitly said otherwise, she nodded, looking genuinely remorseful. We have always been social people, you know that. The idea of a quiet family vacation sounded almost sad to me. I could not imagine celebrating our anniversary without our closest friends. She paused before adding, but I should have respected that this was your gift to us on your terms. I am truly sorry, Olivia. As we talked, my father joined us on the deck. He looked unusually subdued. That was quite a statement you made with that email, he said, his tone hard to read. It was not meant as a statement, I replied honestly. It was simply a fair distribution of costs. He nodded slowly. Several of our friends are leaving tomorrow. They feel terrible about imposing. That is their decision, I said. I did not ask anyone to leave. No, you just made them feel unwelcome, my mother interjected, a flash of her earlier defensiveness returning. My father placed a hand on her arm. Diane, we created this situation, not Olivia. Our friends feel unwelcome because they now realize they were not actually invited by the person paying for this place. It was perhaps the first time I could remember my father taking my side so clearly in a disagreement with my mother. The realization seemed to hit her hard, and her momentary defensiveness crumbled. You are right, she conceded. This is our fault, not Olivia's. My father turned to me. I am sorry too, Olivia. We should have respected your intentions for this vacation. You went to extraordinary lengths to do something special for us, and we essentially hijacked it without consideration for your feelings or your finances. The sincerity in his voice touched me. My parents were not perfect, but in that moment they were at least acknowledging their mistake. Moving forward, my father continued, what would you like to happen? Should we ask everyone to leave? I considered the question carefully. No, I do not think that is necessary. Those who are comfortable staying and have made arrangements to contribute fairly are welcome. This was never about the money itself, but about respect for my boundaries and recognition of my effort. We talked for another hour, delving into patterns of behavior that had existed in our family for years. It was perhaps the most honest conversation we had ever had about boundaries, respect, and expectations. While it did not resolve every issue, it felt like an important first step. As we prepared to return inside, my mother impulsively hugged me. I have been taking you for granted for years, have I not? She asked quietly. Sometimes, I admitted. But I have also enabled it by rarely speaking up. That changes now, she said with unexpected firmness. You deserve better from us. Whether this newfound awareness would translate into lasting change remained to be seen, but as we rejoined the remaining guests, the atmosphere felt different. Something fundamental had shifted in our family dynamic, and for the first time in years, I felt truly seen and heard by my parents. The remaining days of our vacation unfolded in ways I could never have predicted when I first planned this trip. By the morning after my email, 4 couples had indeed checked out, having found alternative accommodations in town. They departed with sincere apologies and had already transferred their share of the expenses to my account. That left 6 of us at the villa: my parents, Sophia, myself, and one couple, the Johnsons, my mother's oldest friends, who had insisted on staying after fully compensating me, explaining that they wanted to help salvage the anniversary celebration. The reduced group size immediately transformed the atmosphere of the villa. Spaces that had felt crowded and overrun now returned to their intended tranquility. The constant background chatter gave way to comfortable conversations and even welcome periods of peaceful silence. More significantly, there was a palpable shift in my parents' behavior. My mother, who typically dominated social situations with her planning and organizing, became noticeably more conscious of consulting others before making decisions. Simple questions like, "What would everyone prefer to do today?" and "Olivia, would it be all right if we invite the Johnsons to join us for the beach picnic you planned?" represented small but meaningful acknowledgments of my position as the host. My father, too, showed a new awareness of boundaries. When Linda Johnson casually mentioned another local couple they knew who might join us for dinner, he quickly intervened. "We should check with Olivia first. This is her vacation rental after all." These changes, while promising, did not erase the awkwardness entirely. There were still moments of tension, particularly when my mother occasionally slipped back into old habits, automatically volunteering my assistance or making assumptions about my willingness to accommodate last-minute changes. However, what differed now was her response when I gently pointed out these behaviors. Instead of dismissal or defensiveness, she typically paused, acknowledged the pattern, and corrected course. On the third night after the Johnsons had retired to their room, my family gathered on the deck for a conversation that went even deeper than our initial reconciliation. Wrapped in light blankets against the evening chill with the rhythmic sound of waves in the background, we began to unpack decades of family dynamics. "I have been thinking about why I felt entitled to invite people to a vacation Olivia was paying for," my mother admitted, cradling a mug of tea. "And I realized I have always treated Olivia's resources, whether it was her time, her space, or now her money, as extensions of my own." My father nodded slowly. "We both have. Remember when we volunteered Olivia to tutor the neighbors' kids every Saturday morning during her senior year of high school? We never even asked if she had other plans. Or when you gave away my childhood furniture without asking because Aunt Sarah needed it for her guest room," I added, finding it strangely liberating to name these old injuries without anger. "And my nursing schedule," Sophia contributed quietly. "You always expect me to swap shifts for family events even when I tell you how difficult that is in my department." Our parents listened without interrupting or defending themselves, a remarkable departure from previous patterns. When we had finished sharing examples, my mother reached out to hold both my hand and Sophia's. "I cannot change the past," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "but I can promise to do better going forward. You are both adults with your own lives, your own priorities, and your own boundaries. I need to respect that." My father cleared his throat, clearly emotional as well. "Your mother and I grew up in families where children were expected to accommodate their parents without question. It was just how things were done. But that does not make it right, and it does not mean we should have perpetuated that pattern with you." That night marked a turning point, not just for our vacation, but for our family relationships moving forward. We established some basic agreements: they would ask, rather than assume, accept our no without guilt trips, and acknowledge our generosity, rather than taking it for granted. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in years. The knot of resentment I had carried for so long had begun to loosen, replaced by cautious optimism about our family's future interactions. The remaining days of our vacation unfolded with a more relaxed rhythm. We enjoyed many of the activities I had originally planned: the sailing excursion, wine tasting, and beach picnics, but now with a newfound mutual respect that enhanced the experience. On the final evening, my parents surprised me with a gesture that touched me deeply. They had arranged a private dinner on the deck, catered by a local chef they had hired themselves. As we sat down at the beautifully set table, my father handed me an envelope. "We cannot fully repay what this vacation cost you financially or emotionally," he said, "but we wanted to make a meaningful contribution." Inside was a check for half the villa rental cost, along with a handwritten card expressing their appreciation and acknowledging the important lessons they had learned. More valuable than the money was the recognition it represented: a concrete acknowledgement of my contribution and their respect for my boundaries. When we packed up to leave the villa on our final morning, the experience felt complete in a way I had not anticipated. Though the vacation had veered dramatically from my original vision, the growth in our family relationships made it more valuable than any perfectly executed plan could have been. As we locked the villa door one last time, my mother wrapped her arm around my waist. "Thank you for forcing us to see you, really see you as the independent, generous adult you are. It took courage to stand your ground the way you did." "It was terrifying," I admitted with a small laugh. but necessary. The best gifts often come in unexpected packages, my father added, joining our embrace. This anniversary taught us something far more valuable than a perfect vacation could have: how to truly respect and appreciate our daughters. The drive home was filled with comfortable conversation and even planning for future family gatherings, but with a new framework of mutual respect and clear communication. I knew there would still be missteps, and old habits would not disappear overnight, but a fundamental shift had occurred. In the months that followed, the changes proved more lasting than I had dared hope. My parents began explicitly asking for my availability before planning family events. They respected my occasional no, without guilt trips or manipulation. When they did request my help or resources, they did so with genuine appreciation, rather than entitled expectation. Our relationship evolved into something more balanced and authentic. I found myself more willing to offer assistance when I could, knowing that my boundaries would be respected when I could not. The resentment that had colored so many of our interactions gradually faded. Perhaps most importantly, I learned that establishing boundaries does not necessarily require dramatic confrontations or ultimatums. Sometimes the most effective approach is simply allowing natural consequences to unfold while maintaining a clear, calm position. That experience in the Hamptons taught me that healthy relationships require both generosity and boundaries. One without the other creates either resentment or exploitation. Finding the balance between giving freely and protecting your own needs is the delicate dance of all meaningful human connections. As I look back on that turbulent vacation now, I am grateful not for the conflict itself, but for the growth it catalyzed. What began as a boundary violation became the foundation for a more mature, respectful family dynamic that continues to evolve and strengthen with time. Have you ever had to establish difficult boundaries with family members? How did you handle it? And what was the outcome? I would love to hear your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more stories about navigating complex family dynamics. Remember, setting boundaries is not selfish. It is necessary for healthy relationships. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you find the courage to stand your ground when needed while maintaining the connections that matter most.